Hello, my dear students. Dr. Vaishali Bharambe here, Professor Anatomy. Today we're going to talk about axilla. So this armpit here is the axilla. Let's learn more about it. What will we cover in this lecture? We'll be defining what is axilla, shape, walls, etc. And then we'll be talking about brachial plexus. That's an important content of the axilla. We'll also answer some very cute questions. What has Laila loves Majnu got to do with brachial plexus? Funny how a mnemonic is called ulna, but there is no ulnar nerve there. Let's see. Come. So for more of these lectures on superior extremity, you can visit my website vbanatomy.com to get more. So let's ask ourselves, what is axilla? The space between the upper part of your arm and the lateral wall of your thorax, that space is called as an axilla. It's pyramid-shaped structure. Okay, so I want you to imagine axilla something like this. Okay, just make a cone out of a paper. Okay, so this region becomes the apex, this region becomes the base, and this space in between is the actual axilla. Imagine it. So this diagram is going to show you the same thing. How axilla has an apex, it has a base. It has got anterior, posterior, medial and lateral walls. Okay, so come let's begin to learn a little bit about each. Use the fold that I showed you, use a paper and create an axilla. Okay, right. Axilla is triangular, bound anteriorly by clavicle, feel it here, bound anteriorly by clavicle, posteriorly by scapula and medially by the outer border of first rib. So in fact, this space here is actually leading into your axilla. This is the apex of your axilla. Structures pass through it in this manner. They pass through the apex down out from the base. So that's the apex. What structures pass through? Axillary artery, axillary vein, brachial plexus. They're all enclosed in an axillary sheath and some additional nerves and vessels. So let's talk about the base. So when you put your hand like this, you can feel there is a depression in your axilla. The roof of that depression till where your hand can go, okay, that becomes the base of axilla. So the base of axilla has an anterior border formed by anterior axillary fold. This is the base, anteriorly formed by anterior axillary fold, posteriorly formed by posterior axillary fold, medially formed by the chest wall. Okay, so this is the base of axilla. This is the apex, this is the base of axilla. The base is beyond this base, there is skin, there is superficial fascia, there is axillary fascia. Okay, so this is the apex and this is the base. You should be able to palpate all this in your body, then only you will understand what is really the axilla. Right, so who forms the anterior and posterior axillary folds? I just spoke about it, right? So I'll be explaining the anterior posterior axillary walls and then parallelly explaining who forms the folds. This here is the anterior wall. So basically anterior wall of your axilla is here. Okay. So formed by structures below your clavicle. What structures? Pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, clavipectoral fascia, subclavius muscle, suspensory ligament of axilla. All these are structures found in front. They form the anterior wall of axilla. And the lower free margin of your pectoralis major forms the anterior axillary fold. This one here. Okay. Similarly, let's talk about the posterior wall. Here, the posterior wall of your axilla is formed by a number of muscles. Which ones? Subscapularis, teres major, latissimus dorsi. Okay, all these form the posterior wall. And the posterior axillary fold is formed by the latissimus dorsi and teres major here. Okay, it is slightly lower than the anterior wall. Right. If you're liking this lecture, do please like, share and subscribe my channel and hit that bell icon. For more detailed anatomy lectures with diagrams, surgical anatomy videos, downloadable notes and MCQs, visit my website vbanatomy.com. Link is given in the description section. So we've done the anterior wall, we've done the posterior wall. Let's go to the medial wall. You should know that the medial wall is basically the thoracic wall, right? So it's formed by the rib cage, upper few ribs, first to fifth, the attached serratus anterior muscle as shown, along with the long thoracic nerve of Bell running along it. All these structures form the medial wall. Also present is an intercostobrachial nerve, which is a branch of the second intercostal nerve, which will be discussed a little later. So all these are forming the medial wall. Anterior wall, posterior wall, medial wall formed by the thoracic cage. What is left is the lateral wall. The lateral wall is very narrow and is actually just a little bit of portion in your humerus. I'll show you how to understand this. This is a section through your thorax. See, this is the rib cage, medial wall. This is the anterior wall. This is the posterior wall, and this is a section of your humerus. You can see that there is the intertubercular sulcus here. This is the anterior wall, posterior wall, and this small little depression here forms the actual lateral wall of axilla, containing the long head of bicep and a little bit of short head of bicep and coracobrachialis. So this is actually the contents of axilla. In this transverse section is showing you all the contents of axilla. So let's revise what we've learned. We've learned about the apex, the base, the anterior wall, posterior wall, medial wall and lateral wall. Right. So what are the contents of axilla? Why is such a big space? What does it contain? Okay. So let's relax. I'm going to have a little bit of coffee. You should too. Ready? Okay. So the contents are best remembered as arteries, veins, nerves, lymph nodes, others. So which arteries? Axillary artery and its branches. Which vein? Axillary vein. Which nerves? Brachial plexus and a few other nerves. Which nodes? Axillary lymph nodes. And what else? The axillary fat and axillary tail of Spence. This is how it's very easy to remember the contents. If you start to mug them up, you will find yourself missing out something. Artery, vein, nerve, lymph node, other. Best way to remember contents. Today we're going to cover nerves. Now I want you to take a piece of paper, maybe some color pencils, because we're going to do a little bit of drawing now. Okay? So let's talk about the contents, primarily the brachial plexus. Brachial plexus is a plexus of nerves that arise from spinal nerves C5 to T1. It supplies muscles of the upper limb. So this is where it's taking origin, from C5 to T1. Brachial plexus is located here. Can you see that it's taking origin from your neck, descending down, distributing itself into your upper limb? It is formed by ventral rami of spinal nerves. Which spinal nerves? C5 to T1. So it's formed by ventral rami because dorsal rami are distributed posteriorly. It's formed by ventral rami of spinal nerves from C5 to T1. Let's see how it's formed. You got your color pencils ready? Come. The brachial plexus, remember, is having parts to it. Roots, trunks, divisions, cords and branches. So we will be first drawing roots, then trunks, then divisions, then cords and then branches. That's the way we're going to do the drawing. Get your pencils out. This is where the roots are, right at the point where the nerves emerge from the spinal cord, from the vertebral column. Let's begin the diagram. Roots are 5, C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. I hope you're enjoying this because it's one of the best ways you can draw brachial plexus. I hope you're drawing. Right. So roots are done. C5, 6, 7, 8, T1. Now, let's talk about trunks. These will variably unite to form three trunks. What are the three trunks? Upper, middle, lower. So, C5 and C6 unite to form the upper trunk. C7 continues as the middle trunk, and C8 and T1 unite to form the lower trunk. Got it? Upper, middle, lower. Now let's talk about divisions. Each of these trunks divides into an anterior division and a posterior division. So each is giving rise to anterior division and posterior division. Right? I've colored the posterior division blue for you to understand better. It's obviously not blue in color. Now, we'll talk about chords. There are three chords: lateral, posterior, medial. Watch the complete lecture on my website, vbanatomy.com. Only part of it has been released on YouTube. The anterior divisions of upper and middle unite to form the lateral chord. All the posterior divisions unite to form the posterior chord. The anterior division of the lower trunk forms the medial chord. So now you saw formation of roots, trunks, divisions and chords. The next step is to discuss branches of each of the chords. Come, I hope you enjoyed the diagram. Okay, please practice it several times. This is an hukum ka ikka. This is one of the best diagrams you can draw, and for everything you can use the same thing. Anything related to brachial plexus, you can set this diagram down and you will still get marks. Come. So if you're liking this lecture, do please like, share and subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon. Remember that these nerves have got fibers from the sympathetic ganglia, and this must be mentioned in your diagram. And it must be mentioned in your theory answer. So this is the actual shape of brachial plexus. C5, C6, C7, C8, T1 are the roots. Upper, middle and lower are the trunks. Lateral, posterior and medial are the chords. Now it has got some important relations, like you can see how the chords are surrounding the axillary artery and medially related to the axillary vein. This artery is crossed by the pectoralis minor, dividing the artery into first, second and third part. Brachial plexus has got variable relation with these three parts of axillary artery. The clavicle crosses the brachial plexus, dividing it into an upper part called the supraclavicular and a lower part called the infraclavicular. Let's first learn about the supraclavicular, then I'll teach you about the infraclavicular. So let's talk about supraclavicular branches. So the first branch is given from C5 dorsal scapular nerve. C5, C6, C7 give rise to long thoracic nerve, which supplies your favorite muscle, serratus anterior. Okay, it's the punching muscle. Right. Also suprascapular nerve and nerve 2 subclavius. There are many other nerves, but if we try to remember all of them, you'll probably remember none of them. So let's try and remember the ones which are easy and related to the upper extremity. Oh, there's an asterisk. Why the asterisk? This point where 6 nerves meet is called as the Erb's point. We will be discussing that. Can you see? C5, C6 are uniting, dividing into an anterior and posterior division and giving rise to suprascapular nerve and nerve 2 subclavius. 6 nerves are meeting at this point, which is called as the Erb's point. Right. The other branches given off are nerve to scalenii and longus colli, and a branch to the phrenic nerve C5. We'll now talk about infraclavicular branches. First, the branches of lateral cord, then posterior cord, then medial cord. Okay, so lateral cord. Lateral cord gives rise to first branch, lateral pectoral nerve. Next branch, lateral root of median nerve, and in between the two, musculocutaneous nerve. Laila loves Majnu. How do we have romance coming in brachial plexus? I have no clue, but I love the mnemonic. Okay, Laila is lateral pectoral, Loves is lateral root of median, and Majnu, of course, is our fantastic musculocutaneous nerve. I hope you enjoy the mnemonic. If you don't need it, good for you. I like the mnemonic. It's very sweet. Okay, so branches of lateral cord: lateral pectoral nerve, musculocutaneous nerve, lateral root of median nerve. A little bit about these branches you must know. So this is the brachial plexus. This is the lateral pectoral nerve, which goes on to supply the pectoralis major and minor muscles of your chest wing. This is musculocutaneous nerve, which pierces the coracobrachialis muscle and goes on to supply bicep brachii and brachialis. And this is your lateral root of median, which meets with the medial root of median to form a very important nerve of your upper limb, the median nerve, a very big nerve. Okay, we'll be discussing a lot about it in some other lecture. Right, so we now come to the medial cord. Medial cord has very peculiar mnemonic. MMMMU. Something like that. I don't know, it works for me. So, medial pectoral nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, ulnar nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, and medial root of median. MMMMU. Okay. So, these are the branches of medial cord. That's the mnemonic. Medial pectoral nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, ulnar nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, medial root of median nerve. How do you differentiate between medial cutaneous nerve of arm and forearm in a cadaveric dissection? Remember that medial cutaneous nerve of arm lies medial to the axillary vein. Medial cutaneous nerve of forearm lies between axillary vein and axillary artery. That's how you differentiate. Use the images to help you understand. The lateral root of median meets with the medial root of median to form the median nerve. Did you see this median nerve, the thick nerve being formed? This is the brachial plexus. This is the medial pectoral nerve, which goes on to pierce the pectoralis minor and supply the pectoralis minor and major muscle. Medial cutaneous nerve of arm and forearm supply the arm and the forearm skin. The intercostobrachial nerve unites and joins the medial cutaneous nerve of arm. Medial root of median unites with lateral root of median to form the median nerve, which descends into your upper limb, goes on to supply muscles of your forearm, and is called as the laborer's nerve. The ulnar nerve, which is the leftover nerve, descends into the arm, passing behind your medial malleolus, distributing itself more in the hand than in the forearm, and is called as the musician's nerve because of the fine movements you need of your hands. Okay, so that's about each of these branches. We will move on to the posterior cord. The posterior cord has a mnemonic ULNAR. Upper subscapular, lower subscapular, nerve to latissimus dorsi, axillary nerve and radial nerve. Okay, these are the branches of posterior cord. Mnemonic is ulnar, but the ulnar nerve is not a branch of posterior cord. Please remember that. Right. So let's see where these nerves go. Now this is the posterior cord here. You can see it giving rise to upper and lower subscapular nerve and a nerve to latissimus dorsi. See how it's descending down here. A nerve that is axillary nerve is exiting the axilla by passing through the quadrangular space and then distributing itself posteriorly and onto the deltoid muscle. Deltoid teres minor and a cutaneous supply to a part of your arm. So what is quadrangular space? State its boundaries, enumerate structures passing through. Very common question asked. I've given you the answer. It's up to you to read. I won't be describing it. There's a separate lecture on quadrangular and triangular spaces. Please go watch that to understand details of this space. Right. This is your radial nerve, which leaves the axilla through the lower triangular space, goes on to supply the muscles of your back of your arm and forearm, which are all called extensors. That's the radial nerve. Okay, but remember that while it's passing through the axilla, it's giving a few branches in the axilla. a branch to the long head of tricep, a branch to medial head. Difficult to remember? Let's use an image. Come. So that's your radial nerve. It's giving rise to a branch to long head, a branch to medial head, and a posterior cutaneous nerve of arm before leaving the axilla. What is the importance of this? That if the radial nerve is damaged below the axilla, you would have your tricep muscle still working because the branches were given in the axilla. Damage is beyond the axilla. So the muscle is functional. That's why you should know all this. This is the lower triangular space through which the radial nerve finally exits axilla, entering into the spiral groove. What is lower triangular space? State its boundaries. Enumerate structures passing through. Again, the answers here, and a separate lecture is already made on this, so do please watch that. What are the functions of brachial plexus? Does it only supply muscles? No, you saw that there were cutaneous nerves also. It also supplies blood vessels and sweat glands. So when you're describing a brachial plexus lesion, remember to also describe the skin changes, the dryness of skin, and so on. Otherwise, you will be under describing the effects of nerve damage. Muscle paralysis, loss of skin sensation, dryness of skin, changes in skin texture. All that is because it also supplies blood vessels and sweat glands. Right. So I'm going to talk about a few brachial plexus lesions now. When upper part of the brachial plexus is damaged, it results in a condition called abducens palsy. Mainly C5, C6 roots are affected, and this condition is also called Vater's tip position. When the lower part of the brachial plexus is damaged, the condition is called Klumpke's palsy. C8, T1 roots are damaged, and the patient comes with a hand that looks like a claw hand. Okay, so let's learn about first the abducens palsy. For that, you have to again remember what is Erb's point. Erb's point is a point where 6 nerves meet here. So let's take a look. C5, C6 roots are 2 nerves forming the upper trunk, giving rise to suprascapular nerve and nerve to subclavius, 4 nerves, and dividing into an anterior-posterior division, 2 more nerves. So Erb's point is a point where 6 nerves are meeting. A point which is most exposed to shearing force and damage to brachial plexus in the neck. It's very commonly damaged. So here's the damage. Okay. For example, if a person is falling and falls on his neck in this manner, the extension that happens causes C5, C6 nerves to get damaged. Injury to the upper roots of brachial plexus due to excessive stretching of the head, fall or blow on the shoulder, or you're trying to pull the baby's head out during a difficult delivery, you apply a forceps which injures the Erb's point. Okay, these are all ways in which your Erb's point is damaged, resulting in a condition called abducens palsy. Okay, what is damaged? C5, C6 roots are damaged. Okay, so here is the damage. Let's understand the anatomy of the injury and the resultant lesion. Nerves damaged are suprascapular, axillary, musculocutaneous. The muscles paralyzed. Therefore, when the suprascapular is damaged, you lose your supraspinatus and infraspinatus, muscles which are involved in abduction at shoulder joint. You cannot abduct, therefore your arm is adducted. Okay, you cannot abduct. So what happens? The adductors have a great time. They tightly adduct the patient's arm. Axillary nerve. Again, deltoid is affected. Inability to abduct the arm is tightly adducted. Musculocutaneous. It supplies the bicep brachii, which is a powerful supinator. If supinator is not acting, the arm will be found in pronated position. If flexor is not acting, arm will be found in extended position. So now, again coracobrachialis is also affected, so is brachialis. So what is the position? So arm is adducted, extended, pronated, and slightly flexed. It looks like the person is asking for a tip. So that's why it's called, sometimes called as policeman's tip image or policeman's tip condition. Limb hangs weakly. medially rotated shoulder, elbow extended and pronated, flexed wrist and fingers. That is the waiter's tip or Herb Dushan's paralysis. I hope you enjoyed this. It's a very commonly asked Viva question as well as a theory question. Do please study it well. If you have problems, of course, please write it in the comment section. I'll be happy to explain it to you again. Right. Let's come to the next condition when the lower part of your brachial plexus is damaged. When can that happen? I'll tell you when it will happen. This condition, when C8-T1 is damaged, is called Klumpke's paralysis. Okay, so a person is falling down and then in an effort to save himself, he grasps a branch. When he grasps the branch, his C8-T1 get literally pulled, avulsed. And that is when you have a condition where C8-T1 are damaged, resulting in Klumpke's paralysis. It's a traction injury, sometimes a tumor in the apical region of the lung, pressure of a cervical rib, all will result in Klumpke's paralysis. Right. Sometimes even when the baby is not getting delivered, you can tug on the baby's arm. Okay, when the arm has come out, the baby is stuck inside, you're pulling the arm, you can damage the C8-T1. Okay, so resulting C8 and T1 injury can be any of these places. So what will happen? Patient will come with a hand that looks somewhat like a claw. Nerves damaged are ulnar nerve and median nerve. So because ulnar nerve is, there will be paralysis of intrinsic muscles of the hand. See, ulnar supplies the hand. Anesthesia along the medial side of the forearm and hand and little finger. That's ulnar nerve lesion. Flexors of the wrist and digits are affected, median nerve. Unopposed action of the extensors of the forearm and hand, so the hand is nicely extended. That's a median nerve damage. Okay, so that was Klumpke's paralysis, resulting in something that looks like a claw hand. But there is both ulnar and median nerve damage. Let's talk about infraclavicular brachial plexus lesions. I'm going to just enumerate them because you really need to understand each of these lesions, which at this moment of time in your study, when you haven't done the rest of the upper limb, becomes a harassment of students, which I don't believe in doing. So, injury to long thoracic nerve of belt causes winging of scapula. Axillary nerve damage, inability to abduct the shoulder because of paralysis of deltoid muscle. Radial nerve injury, wrist drop. Radial nerve is an extensor. So when extensors don't work, wrist drops. Median nerve injury, ape hand. Ulnar nerve injury, claw hand. Remember all this, we will be discussing each of these separately when we discuss each of these nerves in individual videos. Note that it's important to remember the lesion and its effect. But it's not a mugging exercise. You have to understand why the lesion occurs and how it produces the effects. Understanding is a very important part of understanding effects of lesions. Don't mug up the effects. There's no way you can recall them. You have to understand them. Okay? So we'll be discussing each brachial plexus lesion in detail in my next series of videos. So what did we learn? We learned about axilla, its shape, apex, base and contents. Then we started to talk about brachial plexus. We drew a beautiful brachial plexus diagram, its relations, its supraclavicular branches, infraclavicular branches from each of the cords, and then we spoke about some of the lesions. I hope that you enjoyed this lecture. For detailed anatomy lectures, surgical anatomy videos, downloadable notes and MCQs, do please visit my website www.vpanatomy.com. The link is given in the description section. If you enjoyed this lecture, do please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you, students.